Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, is remembered for many things: his leadership during the Civil War, his dedication to the Union, and, perhaps most importantly, his role in ending slavery in America. But Lincoln's journey to becoming the great emancipator wasn't an easy one. His path to this title was shaped by personal struggles, a nation divided by war, and a deep moral conviction that changed the course of history. Born in a log cabin in Kentucky in 1809, Lincoln's early years were marked by hardship. His family was poor, moving frequently in search of better opportunities. Despite limited formal education, Lincoln developed a love for reading and self-education. He studied everything he could, from the Bible to Shakespeare, honing the intellectual skills that would serve him later in life. But it wasn't just books that shaped Lincoln. It was his experiences with the harsh realities of life in early 19th century America, experiences that would deeply influence his views on slavery, liberty, and the Union. In his early adulthood, Lincoln worked various jobs, including as a storekeeper, postmaster, and surveyor. However, it was his work as a lawyer that eventually brought him into the political sphere. Lincoln entered the world of politics in the 1830s, serving in the Illinois state legislature as a member of the Whig Party. His early political career was focused on internal improvements and economic policies. But his views on slavery began to crystallize during the 1840s and 1850s, a period of immense political tension. The issue of slavery had long been a divisive force in American society, but as the nation expanded westward, the question of whether new territories and states should permit slavery became even more contentious. Lincoln, like many in the northern states, believed slavery was morally wrong. He initially focused on limiting its expansion rather than outright abolition, believing that restricting slavery to the South would eventually lead to its demise. However, as tensions grew, particularly after the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which allowed for the possibility of slavery in new territories, Lincoln began to advocate for a stronger stance against slavery. This shift in his political views was not without controversy. Lincoln was a moderate in his early years, careful not to alienate the powerful Southern interests that supported slavery. But as the political climate became more polarized, he began to speak more forcefully against the institution. His opposition to slavery would eventually become the defining feature of his presidency, though it was a stance that initially made him a controversial figure. In 1860, Lincoln was elected president, a victory that signaled the growing influence of the Republican Party, which was founded on an anti-slavery platform. His election prompted an immediate crisis, as Southern states, fearing the end of slavery, began to secede from the Union. The United States was on the brink of civil war, and Lincoln found himself in the most difficult position any leader could face, leading a nation divided by a conflict that would define the future of the country. Lincoln's first priority was to preserve the Union. He understood that the war was not just about slavery, but about the survival of the United States as a unified nation. Yet, as the war raged on, Lincoln realized that the fate of slavery had to be addressed, not only to secure a victory for the Union but also to ensure that the ideals of liberty and equality upon which the nation was founded would be upheld. His decision to issue the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 was a turning point in American history. The proclamation declared that all slaves in Confederate-held territory were to be set free. It was a bold move, one that changed the nature of the war and the nation's future. But Lincoln knew that this was only a first step. The proclamation did not immediately free all slaves, nor did it guarantee full equality for African Americans. It was, however, a critical blow to the institution of slavery and a powerful statement of Lincoln's moral commitment to ending it. Lincoln's decision to issue the Emancipation Proclamation was not an easy one. He faced intense opposition from both the North and the South. Many Northern Democrats, particularly those from border states where slavery was still legal, were resistant to the idea of emancipation. Some feared that freeing the slaves would prolong the war or lead to widespread social upheaval. On the other hand, Southern leaders saw the proclamation as a direct threat to their way of life and responded with fierce resistance. Yet, Lincoln remained resolute. He understood that the abolition of slavery was not only a moral imperative but also a strategic necessity in the fight to preserve the Union. The Emancipation Proclamation fundamentally altered the character of the Civil War. It turned the conflict from one about preserving the Union into a war for freedom. It also paved the way for the eventual passage of the 13th Amendment, which would permanently abolish slavery in the United States. But Lincoln's role as the emancipator went beyond his political decisions and proclamations. His leadership during the Civil War was marked by a profound sense of compassion, determination, and moral clarity. Lincoln never wavered in his commitment to ending slavery, even as the war dragged on and the casualties mounted. He understood that the fight for freedom was costly, but he also knew that it was the only path to a truly united and just nation. Lincoln's ability to communicate his vision of a united nation, free from the scourge of slavery, played a crucial role in rallying public support for the war effort. His speeches, such as the Gettysburg Address, captured the moral urgency of the struggle and articulated the nation's ideals in a way that resonated with both the soldiers on the front lines and the people back home. The Gettysburg Address, delivered in November 1863, is one of the most iconic speeches in American history. In just 272 words, Lincoln reaffirmed the principles of liberty and equality that were at the heart of the American experiment. He reminded the nation that the Civil War was not just a fight for political unity but for a new birth of freedom that would ensure the survival of a government, of the people, by the people, for the people. As the war continued, Lincoln's resolve was tested time and again. The Union faced numerous setbacks, and the casualties were staggering. Yet, Lincoln remained committed to his vision of a nation where slavery was no more. By the time of his re-election in 1864, the tides of war were turning in favor of the Union, but the conflict was far from over. Lincoln's second inaugural address, delivered in March 1865, was a message of reconciliation and healing. In it, he called for malice toward none and charity for all, urging the nation to come together and rebuild after the war. Sadly, Lincoln would not live to see the full realization of his vision. Just weeks after the Confederate surrender at Appomattox Courthouse in April 1865, Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, a Southern sympathizer who opposed his policies. Lincoln's death was a profound tragedy, not just for the nation but for the world. His legacy as the great emancipator, the leader who preserved the Union and ended slavery, has endured for generations. Today, Abraham Lincoln is remembered not only as a political figure but as a symbol of the power of moral leadership and the capacity of one person to change the course of history. Lincoln's assassination, while tragic, did not extinguish the spirit of the movement he had ignited. His vision of a nation where all men are created equal continued to inspire generations of Americans and people around the world. In the years following his death, his legacy became even more significant as the United States struggled with the difficult task of reconstruction. The immediate aftermath of the Civil War was a time of turmoil and change. The Southern states, devastated by the conflict, were left to rebuild their economies, societies, and governments. African Americans, once enslaved, now found themselves free but faced with numerous challenges, including racism, discrimination, and the struggle to gain full civil rights. Lincoln's vision of a united nation, however, lived on through the policies and efforts that followed his death. His ideas about liberty and equality laid the foundation for the Reconstruction Amendments, which would fundamentally reshape the nation. The 13th Amendment, ratified in December 1865, officially abolished slavery in the United States. The 14th Amendment, passed in 1868, granted citizenship and equal protection under the law to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former slaves. The 15th Amendment, ratified in 1870, secured the right to vote for African American men. These amendments, along with the broader changes brought about by the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation, marked the beginning of a new era in American history. Yet, despite the progress made during Reconstruction, the promise of true equality for African Americans remained elusive. The post-war years saw the rise of segregation, disenfranchisement, and violent white supremacy. The Southern states enacted a series of laws known as the Black Codes, which sought to limit the rights and freedoms of African Americans. Jim Crow laws, which legalized racial segregation, would follow in the late 19th century and persist well into the 20th century. The struggle for civil rights would continue for generations, with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X carrying the torch that Lincoln had lit. Lincoln's vision of freedom, however, remained a powerful ideal that shaped the course of American history. His legacy has been studied, debated, and revered by scholars, politicians, and ordinary citizens alike. Over time, Lincoln has become a symbol not just of the abolition of slavery, but of the enduring struggle for equality and justice. His life and leadership are a testament to the power of perseverance, the strength of moral conviction, and the capacity for individuals to shape the world around them. Lincoln's ideals have influenced countless movements for freedom and equality, both within the United States and around the world. His impact on the global fight against slavery and oppression cannot be overstated. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and others drew inspiration from Lincoln's steadfast commitment to justice and equality in their own struggles for freedom. In the United States, Lincoln is revered as one of the nation's greatest presidents. His image adorns monuments and memorials, and his speeches continue to be read and studied for their wisdom and insight. The Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., stands as a testament to his legacy, attracting millions of visitors each year who come to reflect on the ideals he championed. But beyond the monuments and memorials, Lincoln's true legacy lies in the enduring values he espoused: liberty, equality, and justice for all. These values continue to resonate today as the nation grapples with issues of racial inequality, civil rights, and social justice. Lincoln's life and work remind us that the fight for freedom and equality is ongoing, and that the struggle for a more just and unified nation requires constant vigilance and moral courage. His story is a reminder that the arc of history, while long, can bend toward justice, but only through the efforts of those who are willing to stand up and fight for what is right. In the modern era, Lincoln's principles still serve as a beacon of hope and a call to action. The Emancipation Proclamation and the policies that followed it were pivotal moments in the history of the United States. They marked the beginning of a long and difficult journey toward racial equality and civil rights. While much progress has been made since Lincoln's time, the work of fully realizing his vision of an egalitarian society is far from complete. The fight for justice, freedom, and equality continues to this day. As we look back on Lincoln's life, we must recognize the immense challenges he faced and the incredible courage it took to make the decisions he did. His actions were not just the result of political calculation, but of a deep moral conviction that slavery was wrong and that all people, regardless of race or background, deserved to be free. His leadership during the Civil War, his moral clarity in the face of opposition, and his unwavering commitment to the Union and the principles of equality have solidified his place in history as a transformative figure. Lincoln's legacy as the great emancipator is not just a historical label, it is a reflection of the enduring power of moral leadership and the capacity of individuals to change the world. His story is a reminder that one person, armed with conviction, courage, and a vision for a better future, can change the course of history and leave a lasting impact on the world. Abraham Lincoln's life and leadership continue to inspire people around the globe who are working toward justice, equality, and freedom. His example challenges us to reflect on our own roles in shaping the future and to strive for a world that is more just and inclusive for all people. The Emancipator, as Lincoln is known, changed the very fabric of American society and helped to lay the groundwork for a more just and equal nation. His actions, his words, and his vision resonate today, reminding us of the ongoing work needed to fulfill the promise of liberty and equality for all.